Welcome to episode 7 of Thought Mining Podcast. I think that was the most juicy one I've done yet.
Yeah, that sounded good.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, and I wanted to welcome my colleague, Dr. Nathan Anderson. He's a certified genius and a bona fide stud. He may have a PhD, but he's 6'5", and you can't teach that.
Wow, I love it. I reciprocate that to you.
Yeah, except I'm not 6'5", unfortunately.
All the rest of it.
Just a little shy of that, just a little bit. If I keep drinking milk, I might get there.
Never notice.
Yeah. Every night I drink milk and I just measure myself. It's been the same for about 25 years. But, one of these days I'm going to hit my growth spurt.
Well, it's great to be here again.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for coming here and thanks for being part of this podcast and all of that. So in the last episode, we were talking about 6 fears that we can have around interactions such as maybe like a meeting at work or some sort of official meeting where let's just say that there can potentially be consequences to being inappropriate to the context of the situation. So there are in this meeting type of thing that we're talking about, and it could be social, it could just be with a friend or friend group, but it also could be a work meeting or it could be anything where you want to express yourself and you want it to be accepted in the way that you meant it. Mm-hmm. But some things can creep in, such as the fear that maybe you weren't, prepared for this conversation and there's lots of missing information, so you're coming from a place of ignorance. Or there could be the fear that you become too emotionally involved if someone maybe doesn't see it your way, or you're not getting through, and you might get too passionate. Another one would be that... there's another one that's kind of like this, right? This one is that you could rub the other person the wrong way, right? So you could maybe say something that doesn't fully agree with their thesis, and suddenly they're like, oh, this person doesn't like me. This is personal. And they can make that into something. There's a few more. Do you want to
present,
go? Presence.
Not being present enough.
Right. You drift off in the middle, and all of a sudden, Nathan.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I think it's good.
Yeah, right. I agree.
I concur.
Yeah. Relevance.
Relevance. Yep.
Maybe not fearing that you're not saying things that are relevant to the context of the conversation.
Right. And that could just basically take the conversation off the rails, and that you'd be responsible to some extent. So you want to maybe I just won't say anything in this scenario. So I want to describe, I guess, also. Was there one more?
No, I think we got all 6 roughly, with that explanation.
So you, as a person who's, expressing these kinds of fears, one could think, well, this Nathan, he's a fraidy cat. He doesn't want to do anything that's brave, right? But that is the farthest from the truth, to be honest with you. And I've witnessed it in lots of different avenues as we've been friends, but also you surprised me at this thing. So I was with one of my colleagues, and they were receiving an award here at the university where we work, and he's like, oh, do you want to come with me to attend this thing real quick? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I want to see you get the award. Cool. And little did I know that you were actually hosting. You're hosting the awards. So in a packed theater full of colleagues, and so rather than being in a meeting with 6 or 7 colleagues, you're in the theater with a couple hundred of our colleagues, all of them basically, and now you've got the microphone and you've got a presentation to do, and I imagine that the list of these 6 fears was very relevant in that moment. Do you want to just talk a little bit about how all that came to be and how you ended up in that position?
Sure. I mean, it dates back a while. Derek and I met on this wine walk video. I don't know if we've talked about that before or not.
We can show the video too.
At some point in time, we should do that.
So we were in a country rap group for a short period of time.
For one song.
Yeah. But I was thinking that the next time we use that, like if we wanted to re-enliven those characters, that we should do a behind the music, and we can talk about like why our band broke up.
Yeah, I would like to know more about it.
Yeah,
like the history of it.
Uh-huh.
It was good. I mean, so I feel like this co-emceeing gig that I had for this event dates back to that. So that's when you and I met. We both like kind of just jumped into this quirky project and kind of gave it a go, and it was a whole lot of fun, and that ended up leading into us becoming friends. And then around Christmas time, I said, Derek, I do these Christmas videos. I usually just record them with my phone. And you're like, hey, I can help you out with that. So Derek recorded this really cool video for me. I did this parody of Taylor Swift's song Karma and wrote like my family Christmas letter to the tune of that, and shared it out, and people took notice of it. Like I shared it out with my colleagues at Minot State, and people. And
that was putting yourself out there a lot. Like if you think about it, you know, I mean, you're a guy who with a PhD who works at university, and you know, I mean, I'm not going to say that's like. You know, I would say most people wouldn't expect you to reimagine a Taylor Swift song and make a music video to it, you know, and as a Christmas card, you know, and the unexpected nature of it was awesome, which I think made it even more like cool, you know what I mean? But also just like kudos for doing something like that. And I could tell, I remember someone else said to me afterwards, like, oh, I wonder if I could do something like that. You know what I mean? And so I could tell that other people were looking at that being like, man, you know, I wish I did that, you know?
Well, I owe a lot of that to you. So that was you know, you made that thing a lot more special than it would have otherwise been.
Thank you.
If I did it in my basement.
Well, I'm happy to do it.
So that was super cool. But
I feel like we're setting ourselves up though, because next year people are going to be like, well, what's the video?
Yeah, what's coming up?
Yeah.
What's coming up? It's usually one of those spontaneous things where like the lyrics to that were written like the week before the video was shot. And, it's kind of like when the spirit moves you, I guess you kind of follow it. Which happened to be the case there, and with the Wine Walk video. But after, you know, I shared that video out with colleagues here on campus. One of them was on this retirement and recognition events committee, and she said, what would you think about co-emceeing this event with me in the spring? And so she asked me this in December, I think it was. I said, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. You know, she's like, we could come up with some creative ideas. She's like, I'll be in touch. And so, you know, the months passed, hadn't heard anything from her. I thought, I see this retirement and recognition event is coming up next week, and I got it on my calendar to go to. Was it on a Monday or Tuesday?
One of those two, yeah. It was early in the week.
Yeah, early in the week. The Wednesday before that, I got this message on my Teams account saying, hey, Nathan, we should meet so that we can talk about this
So you said yes to this thing, but it was totally off your radar.
Yeah, totally off my radar.
Because it was months before. And
she's like, and I hope you have some good ideas about what we can do. And instantly, like, I was like, there's no way I'm doing this.
Oh, yeah. Was it like a pit in the stomach kind of? Like, oh, my God.
It was. It was the pit in the stomach feeling where it's like,
why did I say yes to this? It was so long ago. Yeah. I didn't even think that this day would come.
Yeah,
right?
I have a full day of work on Thursday, a full day of work on Friday. You know, the weekend's busy for me. There's no way I'm going to have time to plan this thing. And so I sent back a message saying, wow, really? Like, I remember you saying something to me about this back in December or January, but you know, I figured we would have reconnected, you know, to give us a little bit of time to prep for it. But she's like, let's just meet tomorrow, talk about it, see what happens. I'm like, all right. So then I started thinking about like my fears and how maybe this is an opportunity to face a fear, and how this, you know, going through this could maybe help me actually become stronger in some way.
Right.
Like, what's the worst that can happen? I'll get out there, people will go to it, they'll forget about it,
right,
they'll carry on with their days.
Yep.
So yeah, let's just give it a go. So we met, and she's like, I have this, you know, idea. Let's get maybe have some people from around campus make these short videos to follow along with this TikTok trend. And I'm like, I think I can do something like that, because I had written some poem for this inquiry framework that I tend to follow, you know, a while back. And I'm like, I could adapt that for this purpose. And so I just decided, yeah, let's just do it. So, and then I was there, you were there. It was kind of on a whim. Like I finished my slides for that presentation like 10 minutes before it was due. Like I made them within the 30-minute stretch before it was due because I had a meeting before and my schedule was just booked the days leading up to it. But,
So it was kind of a perfect storm situation because not only did you have to do this thing, but it also kind of came in a whirlwind in the middle of a busy week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you just had to make space for it.
Mm-hmm. Right. Had to fit it in and do the best I could with it.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's give it a watch.
Okay, cool. I haven't seen this yet. I'm kind of nervous.
I'll send it to you, but I'll play it also. I'll also put it in the edit so that we can watch it that way.
I don't know if anybody else recorded it. I don't think that University recorded it.
I hope I did video and not just photos. I think I did. I definitely did a video here. Let me just
share my enthusiasm for assessment by writing a poem about how to use A+ inquiry to guide assessment. I'm the assessment director. Of course, I'm going to encourage you to figure out what you want to know more about. Formulate a question to help you find out. I'm the assessment director. Of course, I'm going to encourage you to collect the right data that can be explored. Ensure you can get it from where it is stored. I'm the assessment director. Of course, I'm going to encourage you to conduct analysis with methods that yield an answer that adds new knowledge to the field. I'm the assessment director. Of course, I'm going to encourage you to distribute your results to those that have a stake. Use your findings to guide decisions you make. Finally, I'm the co-MC of the Employee Recognition and Retirement event. Of course, I'm going to appreciate you. Thanks for all you do. I'm pleased that you are here. Be proud of the great work you've done through the years.
Thanks for capturing that,
Darren. It was a really serendipitous moment. I'm really glad I could be there to catch it. There might be some more, but I'll just stop it now because we only have 30 minutes for this episode. But I mean, so you got to probably walk us through that a little bit, right? So I think that the decision to sing that out was a very brave decision. I think it made it a lot more engaging, but also puts yourself in a more vulnerable position, right? Mm-hmm. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think that there was a little bit of an intro to that poem, song, whatever it classified as, where I talked a little bit about how I was nervous to do that, hesitant to do it, because I'm up in front of people who are my colleagues, in a sort of an identity that they're not typically used to for me. I tend to work in this kind of more serious role. And, but I referenced the psychological immune system. I had been listening to some talks on Stoicism sort of in the days leading up to that, just coincidentally, and they talked about the psychological immune system and how I sort of perceived that. It was sort of serendipitous timing that I listened to those talks because it helped me think about, making the decision to be the co-MC of that event,
right?
As an opportunity to strengthen my psychological immune system.
Yep.
So, like, put myself into a situation that could be uncomfortable for me, for the purpose of, one, I guess, making a contribution to the institution, but also to give me more confidence and courage, or do something like that to give me more confidence and courage down the road.
Yep. That's great. That's great. I started thinking about something that I don't want to make it about me, but it just reminds me of something that I did one time. So I went in for this audition for this game show that I forgot. Someone met me and said, "Oh, you should audition for this game show," whatever. So I go and I audition for this game show, and I went in and I was just full of confidence, and I just felt like I just nailed this audition, you know. And then 6 months later, I get a call and they're like, "We want you on the show." But I didn't have, I think, the psychological immune system 6 months later. I wasn't feeling good like I was 6 months prior, and it was just terrifying. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, well, what if they what if this game show's a little bit of a setup? So this is the way the game show was. It was on the Game Show Network, and it was you say a true thing about yourself and an untrue thing about yourself, and you know what I mean, blah blah blah. And they got to pick out what's true, or whether or not I don't know exactly, because I didn't do it. But anyways, basically I was like, well, what if they either imply I did something that's bad that I didn't do, or they trick me into giving away some information on television that I might regret. Mm-hmm. And basically I thought I wasn't necessarily afraid to be on TV, but I was afraid that something bad would happen or come out about me or something like that would just live forever on TV. Mm-hmm. And not that I had any idea what that could be, but you know what I mean, maybe they'll ask you something let's say, have you ever been to jail or something like that, and you'll be like, oh yeah, I've been to jail, you know. Not that I've ever been to jail. But then it's all of a sudden it's oh, you're the guy that's been to jail, or you know, whatever it is, I don't know. So anyways, it reminded me of how I chickened out, right? But you didn't chicken out.
Not this time.
Yeah, and maybe today I wouldn't chicken out because of our conversations and because I'm a little bit older and things like that. But yeah, one time I chickened out at a very similar situation where I got a call and they're like, hey, do it, you know?
Yeah.
And I just remember the panic, and I remember just visualizing what it would be like, and the cameras and this and that and the other thing, and being like, nah, I don't think I'm ready for that right now. And what was funny is they actually called me and tried to double how much they would pay me to do it, and I still said no, because it wasn't about the money. It was about my own fears or whatever, I guess.
Yes.
But I'm the one who walked in and auditioned, and you know, was full of vibrance when I did it, and then all of a sudden I'm just turtle shelling 6 months later. But it's also because I'd kind of forgotten about it, and I was busy that week, and it very much reminds me of your week, where it's all of a sudden, why am I going to shove this thing in when you know what I mean? And yeah, and I did the opposite of what you did. So
well, there have been plenty of times where I've followed that path as well. So
right.
Somehow, for some reason, the stars aligned this time, and I decided to act on it, and I'm glad I did, because the feedback was more positive than negative. I guess somebody's probably not going to come up to me and tell me that they didn't like it. But
right.
I did have, some people come up to me and say that they thought it was fun. And so, that was it really was. And it also, I think, was it's one of those moments where it kind of disrupts the matrix to an extent, the glitch in the matrix, because we're all kind of we have to behave a certain way, our colleagues are here, this is serious, we're in a university, this is the type of environment, we're academic, da, 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 da. And then you kind of do this thing that's a little wild and a little out there, and it's one of those times where it's it's almost can snap you out of a dream a little bit, where you're oh yeah, there is a space to have fun in this moment, you know, I wouldn't even thought that, you know, this could happen like this. And it's everybody's kind of following their program, and all of a sudden you disrupt the program, you know, and you could see, I think, in the reaction that everybody really enjoyed it, that sometimes I think people are wanting a disruption of the program. You know, obviously it can be, you know, maybe if you started gangster rap swearing and talking about going to jail and having a gun, you know, that would have been a disruption of the program that's too far, right? That's a bridge too far. But you were taking something that would have been generally kind of bureaucraties, or let's say administrative in terms of the language that needs to be presented, and then doing it in a fun, sing-song way that all of a sudden is actually more palatable than if you had just said it, you know?
It's more palatable saying, which is funny, which is the ironic part because it's such like, administrative type of language.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, fortunately I work where I work. I mean, I have awesome colleagues, and just like the culture of the university seems to be one in which like celebrates that, risk taking, fear facing, and supporting people who are willing to do that. And I think if I felt a different vibe about the university, I maybe would have not done that.
Right.
I think although I was kind of nervous to do it, I think at least some part of me was saying like, this is a safe space to do this. Like, you have great colleagues, you have people who are non-judgmental, you have people who are, encourage others to take risks. I mean, you think of like being at a university, oftentimes faculty members are, encouraging their students to be risk takers. Don't fear failure, like embrace it and face it head on. And the staff here and administrators here are position themselves in the same type of way. And so it was probably a good setting to do that in. Maybe in other types of settings, it wouldn't have gone over.
Well, I think another thing also, though, is like for you particularly, like when you think about creating your identity and your image in an environment like this, now that you've kind of done that this time, I feel like if you even went a step wilder next time, people will be like, oh, that's Nathan, you know? Yeah. But so you kind of like sort of set the tone for something like that. And then you then create more freedom for yourself to express yourself than maybe someone else would enjoy, because for someone else who we haven't maybe seen that side of, or has made themselves so publicly like vulnerable in terms of like vulnerable to criticizing, like it would be easy for someone to sit in the audience and be like, psh, oh, how could he do that? That's so unprofessional, It'd be really easy to do that, even though I think that most people, wouldn't see it that way. But now that you've created this sort of image of a person who can take on a challenge like that to, almost it's essentially acting or performing or, even though performing is not part of your job description by any means, but now it's like you can have more freedom to be more performative because now there's an expectation or there's a thought that this is who you are type thing. And then, I think a lot of people probably have felt boxed in by what others' perceptions of them should or shouldn't be, and be like, well, I'm the quiet guy at work, so if I started singing or something, everybody would just be like, this guy needs to go to an insane asylum, or something like that.
Right. Yeah, that part of myself feels sort of real. I mean, it feels authentic, genuine. I don't know. If there are, and I'm super drawn to people who are comfortable demonstrating their authentic selves,
right?
Regardless of how they demonstrate it. I mean, in I guess respectful ways, but
right.
And so I feel like there probably are some haters out there, but I find myself sort of intentionally looking away from that and being drawn to the positive feedback. And just the fact, doing something like that just feels good. Like selfishly, it just feels good. Whether anybody like is drawn to it or not, there's a part of me that I think would have felt some sort of satisfaction, even if there was no positive feedback, just because it feels good to be yourself.
And also to like, let's say, not allow the pressure to affect you in terms of like, I'm sure you thought, well, what if someone thinks I'm this way or that way, right? There's no way not to think that in the scenario, but to know that like that you didn't let yourself give into that pressure, like you can base some pride in that, and sort of like, I stood up to, the bully of fear or the bully of my own insecurities or whatever. Not that you have those bullies or whatever, but I'm just saying in general,
I do,
like
Derek, I definitely have them. They're not as powerful as they were in the past, but I definitely
right. And I think that the reason that you're becoming better at it. And me too, you know, I mean, I suffered from certain shyness at different times of my life or whatever. And I think that admitting the it's weird that it's this way, but like admitting the, let's say, vulnerability or weakness is the process of strengthening it, you know, because you got to be able to see something in order to know how to address it. And so that's what I think we talked about in the last episode a little bit about, like, I think everybody might have a similar list of fears that we had, the 6 items, but they're just denying it. You know, you can just take it and push it off or explain it away as something else. You know, I was just tired, or this or that, the other thing, or that person's out to get me, or whatever. This meeting was boring. This meeting wasn't worth it, da, 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 da. So you can always find some reason to not say it was you, right? Or it was us, or, you know. And I think that's the easier way out a lot of times, and that's why the growth isn't going to happen unless you're willing to say, oh, this is really scary for me, you know? And even though this is really scary for me, I'm going to go ahead and just, you know, do it anyway. And then overcoming that challenge is just like, there's the pride you can take from that, you know, whatever it is. I mean, maybe it's skydiving, or, you know, depending on what someone's like is really feeling like it could be holding them back, or, you know, could be between them and the best version of themselves. You know, and I think the best version of you is a very open version. You know what I mean? Like, the best version of you isn't hiding somewhere from the world, you know? And, you know, maybe that's most people too, you know, in terms of like, you know, the people that are hiding, if they could come out, they'd probably have a better experience. And they would probably also, they would have a better experience with the things they're afraid of than they assume, right? So you might think, oh, I could never sing in front of all my colleagues because they'll laugh me out of the room. They won't think I'm serious, da 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 da. And then all of a sudden, I'm, you know, being whisked out of the job, and my whole life is over. Blah blah blah. You can think of any kind of scenario that could cascade from an event like that. But then, you know, I think you could say, well, yeah, you know, that could happen, but it's probably not going to happen. So, like, I'm just going to go ahead and I'll take that risk, you know, because the reward is there, you know?
Yeah. You know, before I know we're kind of getting close to the top of, or to the end of the session.
Oh, yeah, we just got a couple minutes left.
You talked a little bit about, you know, a time where you hesitated, and so you did not act on what may have been an opportunity to face a fear. And
it could have been my big break, to be honest. I mean, maybe I would have been so fun on that show that people have been like, oh, let's get this guy on the next season of, you know, whatever. I mean, I'm not saying that at any likelihood of happening, but at the same time, like, you don't know what fate had in store for you.
Right.
And then you said no, like fate was like, hey, here's a thing, here's a shiny object. And you're like, nah, I don't want to take that shiny object.
Do you have an example of a time where you acted on it? Like, I know that we don't have a lot of time to continue this.
Well, one example I would say would be just from that wine walk video. Oh. So maybe we'll have to attach that to the end of this or something like that.
Yeah.
But I remember you actually helped me, whether you liked it or knew it or not, because the first day we went to do that, I don't even know if I was necessarily supposed to be in the band, or like Adam had kind of suggested I could do something. But then I saw you did your rap, and it was at Adam Dice's studio. And I was just like,
if this guy can do it, I can do it.
To an extent, but also just really impressed that I was like, well, this guy is clearly not trying to create his image around being a rapper, but what he's doing is the best he can do. And that is an endearing thing. Like, to see someone put it out there, especially when they may not like have, you know, like a lot of skill in it per se. And so my fear, of course, in that moment is I don't have any skill in rapping. So I'm like, well, here's someone who is
either.
But you were succeeding in your own way. You know what I mean? You were succeeding at what you were doing. And then I was like, well, I kind of want to get in on this. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily I'm like, well, he's so bad, I can't be worse. It was more like, I want to get in on this kind of like fun, goofy situation. And I know I'm going to have to do something I've never done, which was to like actually sing a rap. And then I was like, well, that sounds kind of fun too. You know what I mean? And honestly, that was very infectious.
Yeah.
And that was like when we first met. So, I mean, it's probably something I haven't shared with you, but let's say there was like a curtain between me and making that choice. When you got up there and did your rap, the curtain fell down.
Really?
I was like, let's do this,
Cool. I'm so glad you did. I mean, that led into all this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
If you would have said no or I would have said no,
right,
this wouldn't be happening.
Yeah, and so that's the universe speaking to us. I mean, I guarantee that there's probably some experience on the other end of that TV show I didn't go to that probably I missed out on. You know what I mean? And you never know. Like, that could have been, a job that changed your whole life, and now I would live in, let's say New York City or somewhere else because of this whatever experience. So... not that I think I missed on anything, because I'm really happy with everything as it is. Yeah. But in general, I mean, like the experience let's say that I turtled up in that moment after you rapped and like, oh, I can't do it. I've never rapped before. And then they put someone else in there, and then we never got to like really become friends like we did. And then there's no podcast.
Right.
And I'm sitting there reading a book in my boring house being like, why doesn't everything ever happen for me?
Yeah.
Because you got to say yes to the thing that's a little bit intimidating.
Yeah. Maybe you said no, and then the world sort of recalibrated in such a way that presented another opportunity to
I think so. And I think that's kind of how it works, right? So like, we do. I mean, if you ever think about lamenting on a thing you missed out on, or a thing that, if I'd only done this, I would have led to that, and that would have done. But then, we always look at, I always think there's another version of that right around the corner, and that's why it's like dumb to think about the thing that didn't happen, because while you're thinking about that, there's something happening right here that you're just ignoring.
Yeah, it's presence again.
Exactly.
It comes back to presence. So if you're dwelling on something from the past that you didn't act on, you're not present to the opportunities that exist right in front of you in the moment.
Yep. Cool. Well, on that note, I think we're hitting our runtime limit here. But this was a really fun episode for me. I think sharing that video and just talking about these kind of experiences, and everybody can probably relate to the sort of sweaty palm moments or whatever, where you got to get up and deliver something that's like you're just not. You don't know if you're ready, and but ultimately, like, what would you say is the secret in this situation? Like, when you're up there and you're doing it, you're in a different state of mind, right? I mean, to an extent, you're not like necessarily in the same state of mind that you and I are in right now. It's like a heightened state of mind. So how do you then dial it back and get into a more relaxed state of mind? In order to, maybe I shouldn't ask that question right at the end of the episode.
That's a good question. Maybe that's something we should ponder for the next one.
Yeah, I think it's important to think about these types of things all the time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 7 of Thought Mining Podcast. Stay tuned for more awesome episodes in the future. Smash that like button. Or I saw someone the other day, they said, boop that like button, so give that a boop, and buy our t-shirt when it comes out in the future. And tell all your friends, spread it around. We're taking over the media landscape. So
good stuff.
All right, thank you. Bye. Good.
Hey there, Bill Gum. We're going wine walking. Woo! Let's go.
Grab your mason jar, let's hit the road. Hillbilly rappers, we're about to explode. Redneck wine walk, it's our time to shine. Tickets online, $24.99.
Ain't the city slickers here, just country cool. Singing about tractors and swimming in the pool. With a banjo beats and a fiddle to plug, we'll raise the roof cause we don't give a cluck.
We just country boys through and through, rapping about wine with the sky so blue. Our rhyme so fresh like cornbread and stew. Redneck wine walk, it's a dream come true.
Give it up for Dakota, hey!
Thursday, work day, ready to rock. About to go downtown, I might take me a walk. Drink a little bit of wine, it might turn to a lot. Put mine in a red solo cup on the rocks. Call a Billy Bob, make a hillbilly fool. Little moonshine, make a hillbilly move. Tear the town down's what a hillbilly do. Mine not wine walk, you a hillbilly too.
Tickets in hand, we're ready to roll. Getting down and dirty, about to lose control. Gather round, y'all, join the hillbilly crew. At the wine walk, there's a hootenanny to do.